Behind me are the components necessary to build an air vise for bait making, and if I am successful, I will have done so for just 185 bucks. I say hopefully because, well, I'm not the handiest guy in the world. And although I did find some instructional material online, I am going to alter some of those designs, and I don't know if it's going to work. So we are going to find out together. I do hope it works because at $185, that's like $200 worth of savings against the average cost of what one of these runs new. Anywhere from like $325 to $450. As we get started though, I want to give credit where credit is due. Two dudes have really helped out, one of which doesn't know he helped out, and that is Wendell Fishing. So his had a lot of the same elements that you're going to see here, but his used wood where I want to do an all metal design. The other guy is Dwayne over at Old Tired Veteran Fishing. I found him on Instagram initially. He actually has a new-ish YouTube channel that I'm subscribed to. Encourage you to do the same. He was gracious enough to answer my DMs when I had a bunch of questions because he runs an air vise as well. So thank you, Dwayne. We're going to jump into it right off the bat. I had considered doing like a whole list of materials first and then entering into the build. But what I'm going to do is as we get to the piece, I'll show you what it is. I'll show you the cost. All that good stuff will be down in the description so you can see the full list in one spot. But for now, let's talk about the first component, which is going to serve as the frame. And that is this guy right here. That is a channel slotted strut, or a slotted channel strut. I grabbed one of those and brought it home, went ahead and cut it into its associated pieces. So we're going to have two of those pieces going to be our strut, or our frame rather, at 32 inches a piece. And then I cut up 5 additional pieces at 7 1/4 inch. I know that's specific. I'll tell you why in a minute. So there's our two 32-inch pieces cut to size. I went with 32 inches because my goal in this, and you can do your own size if you want, but my goal was to be able to put 8 molds in this thing at one point and have a cooling plate in between of each of those, as well as most likely two what I'm calling bookends, like blank stock on either end, so that the components of the vise as well as the pneumatic aren't pushing against the molds themselves, but pushing against a blank stock to try to spread out that pressure. So between that, the adjustable end that you're going to see in a second, as well as the whole base for the pneumatics, I needed at least, it was like 28 to 30 inches, but then I wanted room to actually move things around and not pinch my fingers, so I landed on 32. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to work on the tail end. So this is going to be the part that can slide along these channels, which is why we got this. We're going to put it way up here so it can slide in and then lock down if we're shooting or if we're clamping rather, less than 8 molds at a time. So to do that, we're going to need a couple things. Some angle iron. It's right below the struts in the same area. We're going to need 2 of those, one for each strut. We're also going to need a 4-hole bracket that should be right beside the 90-degree angles. So what we're going to do is we're going to install these on the end, right? These guys are the ones that are going to move up and down with the molds in between. So I have one of those on either side, and this guy is going to clamp them together so that they will always move together. The reason that I cut the other pieces 7 1/4 inches is because this guy is exactly 7 1/4 inches long. So what's going to hold this tight once the molds are in place and all that pressure is pushing against it is 2 different things. One, we're gonna put some bolts in the end, just finger tight right on the back. The main component that is going to tighten this guy up are these right here. This is called a clamping lever. I got it off of Amazon, and it works similar to a ratchet. So you push this little button up there and it goes freely. You release the button and it locks in. So that's going to allow us to push it, bring it around, and then tighten it up, and then loosen it with freedom to also readjust it as we need to. These are 3/8 female, so there's no bolt in the bottom. As you get on Amazon, you'll see that some come with a bolt in it. We didn't want that because we're going to be using 1.5 inch 3/8 bolts for just about everything today. I think in total I have like 14 of these. Now what's going to go underneath that channel to hold it in place is one of two things. One, you'll see here, that is a channel, a flat washer that is wider on one side than it is the other. It actually slides into the channel and then will butt up against the curved side, curved edge of this. It'll go underneath and butt up against that so you can tighten down against it. These were on Amazon as well. Got a whole box of 20 of them. These are 1/2 inch that I got. Did not need a 1/2 inch. Ended up going with 3/8. So if they have 3/8, I would recommend that. So that's one thing that's going to hold it in place. These guys with those 3/8 inch nut or bolts coming up through, they still need something in the channel that will hold it tight. But I didn't want, I wanted something that would keep some resistance the whole time as well. So what I went with, and what we're going to be using almost exclusively with a few exceptions, are what are called spring nuts. They are in the same electrical section of Lowe's. I got 2 bags of these, 5 each. So it's a rounded on one side, flat on the other little bracket with a spring on the end. And if you look inside, it's threaded. This is a 3/8 spring nut, and that curved edge allows you to put it down inside, push the spring, spin it, and then it stays right there. So we can put whatever we need to on there, tighten it down, and we don't have to worry about trying to get our finger underneath of there and screw it in and work with like lock nuts and stuff like that. And we're actually going to use 2 of those to connect our levers on the end, but I want them to be able to move. So in this one instance, I actually cut the spring off. We're going to install them without the spring. So first up, we can actually thread this guy onto that springless nut that I just showed you. There we go. So we'll slide that down the curved end towards you so it'll spin. If I try to do that the other way, it won't. So we'll spin that in place. Grab this guy, put him down on top, that guy there, and then our lever. So from there, I kind of have it started. I'm going to pull up on this lever, which is the same as pushing that button down. Got a star bit here right on the top, and I can, while I'm holding it up, I can tighten that down so it's just snug. There we go. Rinse and repeat. And there we are. Brought it right back to the back. Now we need to fill these holes with just some of those brackets, as I mentioned, a couple more 3/8 nuts. I did have the 3/8 washers because, as I mentioned, these are 1/2 inch from Amazon. Should have been 3/4 or should have been 3/8, so I need a washer there so it doesn't go through. So we'll slide that under the channel. It won't go in this way, right? Only goes in the thinner way, right down over the top, and then 3/8 inch lock nut. And there you go, all set up. The back nuts are just finger tight because once we use the levers to loosen this up, right? Pop that loose, you can push the button, bring it around, and loosen it up a little bit more. Push the button, bring it around. Now this middle piece not only keeps everything in line and together, but it also, after we're done, is going to serve as a handle in the back. But the idea here, you're able to slide this up and back as far as you need for all of your molds in between. And then once you've got that, you just grab your levers and lock it down. Use that button to bring it back around, lock it in place, and it's rock solid. So that is the back end. Now we need to turn our attention to the front end where the pneumatic stuff is going to be. And since we had 10 feet of this stuff, I thought, what better source for an all-metal platform for the pneumatic cylinders to sit on than smaller pieces of this same strut. So that's why I cut them out in 7 1/4 pieces, just like that. I've got 5 of them. 3 will serve as the platform and 2 will serve as a backer. So this is what I'm talking about. Here's my first 3. This is the base for what will be the backer. I'm gonna put our pneumatic here. Our cylinder will sit right in the middle, right on those guys, but I don't want just the screws that hold this cylinder or hold this pneumatic into these to be the only thing that gives us security, right? So I want to have a backer right here. So that's the bottom. Put a backer there, which means we need to connect these 2 next. Bada bing, bada boom. It's all taken care of, nice and secure. So we need to take our spring strut nut dealios. Remember the ones with the threaded inside? We need to put these down inside the track, spin them in place underneath, and then take our 3/4 or our 3/8 inch bolts and lock those in. Of course, an open channel is down, so in order to make that happen, we're gonna need the aforementioned square washer. Just like so. Find our spring nut there, place her down, tighten it up, and we got a platform. And there you go. She's all locked in place. Everything is nailed down, as they say, to our frame. So from here, where do we go? Let's talk the actual pneumatic cylinder. So I looked all over Amazon. What I was hoping to find was 2 cylinders that could ride on either side of the frames here with those nice round plates or flat parts that would push out towards the molds. And for the life of me, man, I could not find them on Amazon. So I reached out to Dwayne because I'd seen that he had some on his, asked him where he found those dang things, and yeah, he made them himself. Guy's got a lathe. He has capabilities that are way beyond me. So I am going with the same pneumatic. It's a double ram pneumatic cylinder made by Talons. It's the same one that Wendell used. It's the only one on Amazon that I could find with a plate. Obviously there's a ram arm, cylinders are inside, but it has a plate, which means we can mount it right onto our platform. All of our molds will be here, and should look pretty nice. An added bonus, by the way, check this out. The length of the pneumatic cylinder is exactly the same as these 3 struts put together. How freaking cool is that? And the holes, right? These are the mounting holes. There's 4. It just so happens that as these slots lined up underneath of it, they lined up perfectly. So I didn't have to drill anything for the pneumatic cylinder. We will have to drill some for the switch. That's going to go on top right here behind. But for this, we didn't need that. But we did need some machine screws. Nice long ones. So I got some M470x60, a pack of 4 of those. The associated lock nuts, and then some 3/16 1 1/4 washers. Should be able to go right in the middle of the base and drop these 4 in. 1, 2, give a little shaky shake there. 3, and 4. Then we'll take our washers and our lock nuts, fish them up through there, and tighten them down. Future editing Adam here. It dawned on me as I was putting this video together after the build that some of you may be wondering or even worried about the distance between the two frame pieces, especially as it relates to thinner molds. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So as I mentioned, the distance between the outer edges of the rails is 7 1/4. The distance between the inside of the rails is right around 4 inches, which typically isn't a problem. Most of your molds are going to be at least 4 inches wide and will be able to span this gap here. But there are some, like the 1.375 inch Stonefly, that are actually thinner than this gap. So what would I do there? I would either put one on one side, put one on the other, maybe have a wider bookend to try to clamp it together, but there is a better solution. If you recall, we bought a 10-foot piece of the slotted strut, the frame material. Even after we cut the 32 inches for either side and all of our base pieces, we still have a lot left over. This guy here that I showed you at the very beginning of the video, and that is the perfect size to just lay right in between as a shim, like a filler gap when I need it. It's not something that's required for the structural integrity of the vise, so there's no need to connect it to anything. It's too short to do that anyway. So I'm just going to keep it, pull it out as I need it when I shoot these small ones. Now I can put that anywhere or just even right smack dab in the middle. So welcome to day 2. Got a late start on this last night and had to take a break. So it is day 2 and we are on the last bit. Gonna finish this up today. I was able to get the pneumatic locked down, tightened up. I also went ahead and got our valve out, or our switch out. That is this guy right here. So this is a 5-way 2-position switch. It's made by the same company that makes the pneumatics as well as the switch and this tubing. I want to put it right here on the edge. So I mocked it up and drilled some holes already here. So that's ready to rock and roll. These two outlets will go to this side where the air comes in. I actually had to put those in off camera as well, so I took care of that as well. And then the other side of the switch, this guy here, is where the air will come in. So the only thing we have left to do is to get out some more machine screws to attach our valve to the base. I got some 8/32 1.5 inch machine screws to do that, and I'll fish underneath some 8/32 lock nuts as well. There we go. She's all centered in and locked into place. From the website, as I understand it, this is a 5-way 2-position switch. So if the switch is pushed towards the valve like it is now, that's in the off position. As we pull it away from the valve towards me, that's going to be the on position. So that is just about all we need to do, short of connecting now the valve to the pneumatics. We're using 1/4 inch, so I had to get 1/4 inch tubings, what I showed you before. That's all the stuff you get, bunch of tubing, bunch of fittings. I think we will use a couple of these. A lot of different sizes in here, by the way, so gives you a lot of different options, tees and whatnot that we're not going to need. But we do need a piece, and I already cut it to kind of mock up and make sure that we can get from the valve to the pneumatics. So that's this. I don't know what that is. I know I'm going to be asked. That is just over, or right at 13 inches. Super easy to attach these, by the way. You just shove it in It's like a shark bite. You guys ever heard of a shark bite? I've used those for plumbing. So once you shove it in, it's nice and secure. If you want to get it out, is it out or in? Now you pull it in and it'll just pop right out. So shove it in and then bring it around. It needs to be long enough where we don't get a kink in our line here, right? We don't want it to bunch up like a hose that seals off the water. So nice and smooth. Piece number 2. Stick it all the way in, bring it around. No kinks, everything looks good. So we've got our tubing in from the valve to the pneumatics, but now we've got to figure out how to get the air from the air compressor, right here beside me, to the valve. And the valve isn't like the fittings for the air compressor. It's got just a tiny little inlet. See that guy? Right here. It's for the tubing, not necessarily for what you would typically see with an air compressor. So my goal in all of this is to utilize the quick connects as much as possible so I can store this away when I need to and I don't need to take apart everything. My air compressor here has a quick disconnect. You can't see it, but it's right here. It's already on there. So what we need for that side is one of these female connections, right? The tube goes to the female connector. That will slide in to the air compressor. We need to get from this other end to that little inlet. So first of all, I put on a quick disconnect on the other end. From there, we're going to use a couple things. This came with the tubing. So it is a 1/4 inch for the tubing size, male. What I did was I married that up, what's inside of there, with another female adapter, the same that I just used to connect to the quick connect on the air compressor. So now I can connect that, right, anytime I want to use the vise. Now all we need to do is get from here to my little inlet valve right there. We're going to do that with just a long piece of tubing. Thought about a short piece of tubing to kind of hang it off the edge and connect it. It just didn't look as good, and I was worried that the strain would hurt it. So I went with a longer piece. It'll actually go to the side here. Well, let me just show you. All right, into our inlet, just shove that in there, nice and secure, won't pull out. So that's good. And now that we have the same thing on the other end, you can see my tube just kind of lays flat. Come right to the other end and shove it in. And that'll just lay there nice and flat so that the whole unit doesn't have any stress on it. When I'm done with the air vise, now all I have to do, I leave that whole unit or that whole piece connected and just pop the disconnect. And with that, the build is complete. Or so I hope. Hopefully I didn't screw anything up here along the way. We are going to find out together in just a second. But I went ahead and loaded up. So that is 8 molds with the cooling plates that I have already. I have 5 of them, have 2 more on order. They're going to be here tomorrow as stand-ins. I've got a couple of blanks sitting right there that are about the same size. So you can see 8 molds. I could actually go, got what, another 2 molds at least distance over there. This, I believe, if I remember correctly, this solenoid or this pneumatic will extend, I think it's 5 inches. That's the travel. Not sure about that. I'll have to double check it, but I still want it fairly close. Got a little blank piece here that it will push against. Got a blank piece on the back. So let's take our adjustable back pieces here, shove those up, and then we turn on the air compressor and hope nothing blows up. All right, these are nice and tight, so I'm going to push the button down to bring it around so I can loosen it. There we go. See if that's loose enough. No, needs another one. There we go. Now we're moving. Slide that forward so it's against our blank piece. Tighten it down. That looks good. Now it's time to turn on the air compressor. So that just expanded. Maybe I had it backwards. Towards the valve, it lets the air through. Away from me, it dislodges it. We'll see in a second. Yeah, see that? This is towards you guys, which I thought, like I said, was off, but it did extend it. I will say, these are rock solid. I mean, these are going nowhere. So that's good. Hopefully it comes back when I flip the switch. Whoo! Look at that. Oh, that's very satisfying. Okay, that was cool. Yes, that was cool. Nothing blew up. I still have all my 8 fingers and 2 thumbs. That's a win, folks. That is a win. All right, let's try it one more time. Oh man. Yeah. Oh gosh, that's as fun as I thought it would be. That is very satisfying. That's it, guys. This was a win. This was $185. The whole laundry list of what you need to do this on your own if you want to will be down in the description. Thank you for coming along for this rather tenable build of mine. I'm glad it worked out. And until the next time, see you guys